Have you ever wondered what is the best way to leave money to the next generation? Well, by the end of this video, you will gain clarity for your personal retirement plan and have action items to help you secure your retirement.
To learn more about securing your retirement and all the different elements you need to know, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell to be notified when we post a video every Monday. We have helped hundreds of our clients gain clarity and get on the path to a comfortable and happy retirement. Now it's your turn. Let's dive in.
What is the best way to leave money for the next generation? Now, I will tell you that in our practice, we have a lot of conversations and people will say a lot of different things when it comes to leaving money to the next generation. One of those is, I've already given my kids enough. I'm not really worried about them having a certain amount of money. That's not my goal. My goal is for us to have a good retirement. And so I'm not that concerned about how much my kids get. And let me just say that makes perfect sense. We are never, ever advocating that you should not spend money to leave money to the kids. Now, some people do have that goal. They have the goal that says, hey, I have a certain amount of money I want to leave my kids. What we're really talking about here, though, is how to set things up so that if something does occur, you lived the retirement you always wanted to live. You spent as much money as you wanted to spend. You went on every trip you wanted to go on. But at the end of the day, there's something that is left, and it's going to go to the next generation. What's the best way for it to be set up? And so we want to talk to you a little bit about how to do this, some of our recommendations. I will tell you, this is not about doing a will or a trust. We've done other podcasts on that. What we're really talking about is on the account level. How do we set things up so that it goes to the next generation? Now, there's a lot of different types of accounts that you could have. You could have IRAs, 401ks, savings, brokerage accounts. You might have private property like a home or things like that, life insurance or annuities. So what we want to do is talk a little bit about how we would handle those different accounts and some things to think about, maybe even who's best to leave it to from those types of accounts. So Merce, if you want just to tackle whatever you want to tackle on these accounts to kind of help us think through what we can do and why it would be beneficial.
Yeah, sure. So, as you enter into the retirement journey, you probably have accumulated a couple different types of accounts, like Graydon was saying. And I think that the IRA and the 401k are typically the most common. And every account has its own set of issues. IRAs, if it's a traditional IRA or a traditional 401k, that's taxable money. So it hasn't been taxed yet. So you got to think about your withdrawal plan on that. And then, like Graydon was saying, if there is money left behind, how's it transfer over? And so the IRA, the 401k, those are the most commonly known that you can always add beneficiaries to those accounts. And it's usually pretty easy to do. Say you're at a Charles Schwab or a Fidelity. A lot of these institutions have made it possible just to go in, log into your account, and you can add your beneficiary online. Whereas used to be you have to sign a piece of paper. And the thing is that sometimes it's so easy to forget about these accounts. We've had so many stories with clients that they just forget about this 401k that they had from a job 20 years ago, and it's just sitting out there. And yes, there's money out there, but also there's money to be passed out there. And sometimes you forget who your beneficiaries are. So I think it's really important to have a good tab on how you want to leave your money behind, who you want to leave it to, and where are these accounts at. So we're big on consolidation, if at all possible. With your 401k, you can, if you're not working anymore or you're above the age of 59 and a half, it's very easy to consolidate that down into an IRA, maybe at Charles Schwab or at Fidelity. And so the less accounts you have kind of consolidated in one place, it makes it a lot easier to keep up with those beneficiary designations. Now that's the IRA, the 401k, and those are the most common when you think about a beneficiary form. But there are other ones as well. So a savings account just at a bank, you can also add what they call a TOD, transfer on death, or some banks call it a POD, payable upon death. And so what that does is if something does happen to you, the bank knows who has to come and claim it. And it's already written down on paper. It avoids any probate mess that you hear about sometimes, where it gets left up to the will, and you go to the court systems and you have to fight over what was left in a checking account. So you can do it on a checking account, a savings account. You can add these beneficiaries as well. And so I would say, as many beneficiaries as you can add, the better. There's other accounts out there, but Braden, let's talk about the importance of your assigning your primary. But then also you can add a contingent, and then you can go further. So Braden, you want to touch on that?
Yeah, so most beneficiary forms are going to have it standard that you can add what is called a primary beneficiary, and then you can list contingents under that. We actually say that if you have what are called second contingents or tertiaries, that you list them as well. So why? And what are we talking about? So let's just say that we're talking to a couple, and the one is wanting to leave it to the other. They would be their primary beneficiary. So you would have, let's just say we're talking to a woman who wants to make her husband the primary beneficiary. Well, that's easy. But now, what about the children? So let's say that there are 3 children. Well, now you would leave the 3 children and you would put them as, in most cases, contingent beneficiaries. So they're next in line. But what if each of those 3 children have 2 children? So you've got 6 grandchildren. So they would be listed as second contingents or tertiary. And it's really important, we believe, to put all of those down. Now, there is some terminology you can use that we'll talk about how to do that. But by listing them, you can put the percentages exactly how you want them. But there are some pretty big tax benefits that could be there. And it is something that would, if by having them all listed, it allows for future planning that could be very, very tax advantageous. Let me give you an example. Let's say that, going to my same example, that one of my 3 children that I'm going to leave money to that's in an IRA, let's say it's in an IRA, they are very well off financially. They don't really even need the money that you've got. That's one scenario. The other one is they say, I've got my child, your grandchild, that's going to school, and I want to help pay for college with some of this money that's coming over to me in an IRA. Well, what a lot of people would do without thinking is you leave it to your child and they pull the money out of the IRA and they're going to pay their tax rate. And if they're a person who's making a good income, they're going to pay a very high tax rate because it just gets added on to their income. So if they're already earning a good income and then they take it out of their income, well, that's just taking their tax bracket to the top. And most of what you thought you were leaving to your child is going to Uncle Sam in taxes. So what that child can do, if you've listed, now this, you have to have them listed. If you have listed the grandchildren, your child could do what's called disclaiming, and they could disclaim a portion of their inheritance. They don't have to disclaim it all. They could disclaim a portion of it or all of it, and it would go to the next beneficiary in line. Now, why would they do that? Well, instead of taking the money out, paying their tax rate, and giving it to their child, your grandchild, if they do this thing called disclaiming, then the grandchild becomes the one who inherits it. Now, likely the grandchild's not making as much as their parent. Maybe they are in school. Maybe they're newly graduated. So now they take it out at their tax rate, which will be most of the time a lot less than the parent. And so that's a huge tax benefit that gets overlooked so many times. But you cannot disclaim to the next generation like that if they're not listed. So that is a very big reason as to why you want to make sure that you have all of them listed, because it could be a huge tax benefit, in particular to IRAs and 401ks. Now, real quick, Merce, could you talk a little bit about brokerage accounts? And a lot of times brokerage accounts, most people think go through the will, but explain how we can do that to make it a lot easier for those who inherit it.
Yeah, I've seen it so many times. If you set up a brokerage account properly, you can make that hardship so much easier. When I say hardship, just having to deal with the transferring of assets. Yes, you can do it in your will, and you can state, who you want to receive the whatever is in that brokerage account, you can do it that way. But once again, it kind of has to go through a process there. And it can be easy, it can be difficult. But another way that has a very straight answer is you can still add, even to a brokerage account, what they call a beneficiary designation. And once again, depending on the institution, they could call it a beneficiary designation. They could call it a TOD, a POD, payable on death. So just check in with your custodian, like Charles Schwab or Fidelity, TD Ameritrade, and see what their process is. I know Schwab allows you to do it online as well. So, but essentially what happens then is if you have someone named to your brokerage account, just like to your IRAs and 401ks, now all they have to do is fill out a form, and it's typically called like a death claim form that says, I am this person that was to be left to receive the money on the point of this person's death. So all it is proving who they are versus having to go through the courts, versus having to go through a judge and an executorship and stuff like that. So once again, a lot of power there, a lot of ease once you use the forms, once you use a beneficiary designation. And then sometimes people ask the question, and this is not really the beneficiary side, but it's more of the best money to leave behind. We haven't talked about life insurance yet, but life insurance is left behind tax-free. So that's a huge advantage to your heirs. And you may say, well, I don't care whether or not the money is tax-free. I just, if I'm leaving them money behind, well, good for them. But tax-free life insurance is a huge benefit to the heirs because they just don't have to worry about the taxes. The Roth IRA is another great one because it is tax-free, but with the IRAs and the Roth IRAs, there's a 10-year rule that the beneficiaries have to take out the money within 10 years. With life insurance, there is no rule. They just get a check and they can do whatever they want there. So that's kind of talking about if there is a way, the best way to leave money behind, ideally it's tax-free money, but we know that's not possible for everyone. But definitely possible for everyone is the ability to add those beneficiary designations. So a lot there. Radon, you briefly started to touch on two major types of beneficiary designations that we utilize quite heavily, and we think one makes sense 9 times out of 10, but there are scenarios where it doesn't, and that is the difference between per stirpes and per capita. So if you want to touch on that.
Sure. So the terms that Mercis use, per stirpes and per capita, I'm going to explain how they work. I will tell you that most beneficiary forms, if we don't say anything, it defaults automatically to what's called per capita. So what that means is if I put down 3 beneficiaries, go back to my children again, and I list my 3 children as contingent or primary, it doesn't matter, beneficiaries, and something happens to one of my children, instead of their inheritance going down to their children, your grandchildren, their portion gets now put over to the other 2. So it goes sideways. So if you had 3 children, they were all getting roughly 33 1/3 each. That 33 1/3 now goes over to the other 2, goes sideways, and now they're going to get 50-50. Most parents who have the IRA and are leaving it want that money, that portion that would go to that child, they want it to go to their children, meaning go down. And if you want to do that, and sometimes people go, wait a minute, what if another grandchild is born and I forgot to list them? Well, all you need to do is by the name of your beneficiary, put the term per stirpes. And what per stirpes means is that if that child is not here, meaning they've passed, then their inheritance will go directly down evenly to grandchildren. So if I said, okay, I've got 2, that child has 2 children, and I put per stirpes by my child, at my child's death, if they had died, it's just going to go directly down to the grandchildren 50-50. I don't have to put them down. I don't have to list them. If another grandchild's born and I forgot my beneficiary to update my beneficiary designation, the word per stirpes by the name automatically makes it go down in that direction. So in a lot of the instances that we are filling out beneficiary forms, when we explain that, a lot of our clients want us to use the term per stirpes, because it brings everybody puts all the beneficiaries into the way that most people want it. So we know this is a lot. We know we've gone through a lot of information here. We hope that it's been helpful. If you ever would like to have a conversation with Merce and I, and you have questions, if you go to our website, pomwealth.net, you can go there and you'll see a button that says schedule a 15-minute complimentary phone conversation. It's free, doesn't cost you anything. It's complimentary. Our calendar will come up and you can schedule a call with us. But we certainly do appreciate you listening to our show, and we look forward to talking to you next time. We hope this video has given you some confidence and clarity as you plan for a worry-free life in retirement. But what else do you need? We have created a complimentary video course called 3 Keys to Secure Your Retirement. This video walks you through step by step what you need to do to get ready for retirement. You can also check out our podcast called Secure Your Retirement. You can subscribe below.
For more retirement tips, watch this video. Create your retirement income plan. Also, click here to subscribe to our podcast, Secure Your Retirement. If you like this video, hit the like button and be sure to subscribe and share it with your friends.